Shocking, disgraceful, and dreadful. Those are just a handful of words to describe that insipid performance against Everton. Now, we knew Everton would set up to frustrate us, but we made them look like prime Barcelona. I've slept on the performance, but even after that, it's still just, it was dreadful what we saw. I don't know what went wrong. We were just not at the races today. I can only pick out one, maybe two players who were fit to wear the shirt last night. It's like we're hungover from the win over Villa, because after that match we've just looked like shit. There's no other way to put it. We have just looked terrible. Those were 3 winnable matches we had, and we lost every single one of them. And last night was definitely the worst of the bunch. And honestly, it's probably one of the worst performances we've had since we got promoted. We showed absolutely nothing. There was zero creativity in the midfield. We had no control on that match whatsoever. We didn't even try to hold on to the ball. We looked scared every time we had it, just hoofing it upfield and hoping that somebody could pick it up. And that's not just a problem with this game. Multiple times this season and even last season, we looked scared when we had the ball. That doesn't inspire confidence, and that's not how you want to see your team playing in the Premier League. We shouldn't be scared to have the ball. We should be confident on it, because we've got the good players. We just need to be more confident with the ball. I don't know what's going on. We were second to everything and lost pretty much every duel. The fight was just non-existent. I could barely see a single ounce of fight from many of our players last night. Everton weren't great themselves, but they grafted a lot harder than us, and in every position they put in the work. Like, it's not that we have bad players, because we don't. Individuals, they're brilliant, but as a team, we're just not there. I've been saying it for weeks, but I think our main issue is a mentality one. We simply do not have the mentality needed to compete competitively in this league. Even against teams that we should be beating, like I mentioned, West Ham, Brighton, Everton, those are matches that we should have won. And if we kept up performing like we did against Villa, we probably would have got something out of those matches. But no, that's 3 straight defeats. After a very emphatic win, it just make it make sense. We just seem to be perennial bottlers. I don't think there's any other way I can say this. If there's a match that is going in our favour, say they're dealing with a lot of injuries, their main players are out, we'll just go ahead and lose that match. I don't know why. As I mentioned, the last 3 fixtures we played were against teams who had not been having a good time before they faced us, and every single one of them has beaten us. We've thrown away leads like they grow on trees, and have shown no fight to reclaim those leads, or at least fight to share the points. I barely see any fight in this team. Last night was particularly egregious because we had no shot on target for 86 minutes. And that's quite frankly embarrassing. Our centre-back was our best bit of attacking threat. What is going on? And I don't want to discount Murillo because he was brilliant, but he should not be our main attacking outlet. We've got Morgan Gibbs-White, for crying out loud. We had Anthony Elanga, we had Callum Hudson-Odoi, we had Divock Origi, we had Chris Wood, but Murillo was our best attacking player. Make it make sense. I don't know what's to blame for this, but realistically it's nothing new at Forest. We saw shades of it last season, but this season it's out in full force. Call it second season syndrome, call it what you like, but we've not been at the races really. We've only won 1 game in the last 10. Now 4 of those games have been draws, but even some of those draws we should have won. I know that nobody is guaranteed a win, but realistically we should have beat the likes of Burnley and Luton at home. Newly promoted sides weren't having the best run, but we drew to Burnley and we drew to Luton. I don't understand how we had such a positive start to the season. We built on the momentum that we gained last season. Brilliant last grasp performance against Arsenal. But then form plateaued, and now it's just fallen off a fucking cliff. We started so strongly. We could have been in the top half. But no. Our form not only plateaued, but it fell off a cliff. Now Cooper said in an interview after the Everton match, and I'm going to quote here, "There's no question of spirit, attitude or work rate. Just sometimes quality on the ball. But from where I was sitting, I saw none of this spirit, none of this attitude, and none of this work rate from the majority of our players. Now, you can make arguments for other players being, better than others, but Murillo was the standout, and he was our best player. There's no doubt about that. He showed determination, grit, fight. He showed spirit, he showed attitude, and he showed work rate. And you could see at the end of the match when he was crouching down that he'd given his all out there, and which didn't work out for us. It honestly feels like the squad hung over from last season, because the energy this season has been off, in my opinion. Gibbs-White has been a shadow of the player that he was last season, but granted, this is largely because he's been played out of position for the most part. He has looked so much better when played centrally. We saw it against Brighton, and we saw it when moved into the centre against Everton. But for some reason, Cooper just insists on playing him out wide, and it's just not working. We have to tinker around with the squad to get a formation that works with Morgan Gibbs-White down the middle, because that is where he is best. I know it'll take some jigging around, but he is much better in the centre of the field than out wide. But I do feel he needs to work on his game as well, though. He keeps trying on these little flicks and other tricks, but they never really come off. So I think if he just got back to basics, built on that, then he could become the player he was last season, or be even better, because he was brilliant last season, and he's shown some glimpses this season as well, but recently, when he's been played out wide, it's just not been working for him. So he needs to be get him back in the centre, get him back to basics, and we'll have a brilliant player again. But at the moment, it's just not working out for him. And he's a great player. He's just not being played in his preferred position, really. That's the main crux of his performances this season, I think. We also need to talk about our atmosphere, because last season it was a huge talking point that our atmosphere of the City Ground was amazing. It was some of the best the Premier League had ever seen. The atmosphere we generated was insane. We were lauded for it. But this season, that atmosphere has all but disappeared. Like I mentioned earlier, the energy of this season has just been off. That Villa match was the best atmosphere we'd had all season. It wasn't great before that Villa match, and it certainly hasn't been great since. But I think against Everton last night, it was especially flat. Now, I can understand the weather sapping some people's morale, because it was terrible weather, freezing cold, and just some insipid football being played. So of course people aren't going to be up for that. But it was still awful. Like, Everton outsang and outplayed us in our own ground. It's just embarrassing. For a team and a club that prides itself on its atmosphere, getting outsang and outplayed at your own stadium should not be on. We should not have stood for it. But nothing was there to engage the fans. I understand that football needs to engage the fans, and against Everton, it was the furthest thing from engaging. It was anti-football at its finest, and it was just awful to watch. It was the same against Brighton, but as the football improved, so did the atmosphere. We still need to bring the atmosphere, even if the team aren't playing well, we still need to back the boys, because the atmosphere plays a huge part in not only their performance, but can also unnerve the opponents somewhat. If there's a loud, ferocious atmosphere coming from the ground you're playing in, like, you're not gonna be playing at your best. So we need to bring back our brilliant atmosphere from last season and really show the team that we're still behind them. There is one other thing that deserves a mention regarding the atmosphere, and that was the disaster at the start of the match. Firstly, we had this wonderful tifo from Forza Garibaldi, absolutely phenomenal, but somehow we just didn't play Mull of Kintyre. How did they not only miss time Welcome to the Jungle, but then just completely forget Mull of Kintyre? Now, this is allegedly because we don't even control our sound system at the ground. It's done off-site, which is the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. Why do we not have the facilities at our own ground to control our own music and our own speakers? It's so confusing to me that is the situation. If it is indeed the situation, we don't know for sure. It's just speculation, but that's what the Forza Garibaldi have said. And I think their display was sort of not maybe ruined, but taken away from, because we didn't get Mull of Kintyre as well. That was honestly the point where this match just went downhill, I can't even lie. the atmosphere never really got going after that. The fans do need to take some ownership of the atmosphere, but we can only say Forest and Magic so many times before it loses its charm. We really need to get some new chants going for the boys, and we can get the City Ground bouncing again, because we're not a bad team. We've got some brilliant players. But if we get behind the team, you know, get that atmosphere right up again, the results will follow, I'm sure of it. But at the moment, we're just not doing that. And it's showed. But finally, I want to talk about the manager. Stevie Cooper. I honestly love the man. Like, he is such a good manager. He's a brilliant man himself. He's really connected with the club, connected with the fans, taken on board the history, but also not focused on it, if that makes sense. He dragged us from the bottom of the Championship all the way to the Premier League. And not only that, he kept us up in his first season of top flight management as well. That is insanely impressive. He just gets the club and has really connected with the fans like no other manager has in my lifetime. He's an absolutely brilliant bloke who clearly loves the club. I mean, if you listened to his interview before the Everton match, he said he'd have to be dragged out there by his hands and feet. And honestly, I love the man. I wouldn't wish any ill will on him. I would rather he didn't leave the club. But at some point, you've got to be asking questions, because football is a results game at the end of the day. The last time his job was under pressure last season, that pressure created diamonds, and we really kicked into gear. The same has not happened this season. The amount we sit back in games is criminal, quite frankly. We should look to play attacking football, and it's just so bizarre that we don't. It very rarely works in the Premier League. We've not seen it work at all. So we just need to go at teams, because we've got the attacking talent. We can just go at teams and we can probably get results against them, because sitting back just doesn't work. He's also made some really questionable tactical choices this season as well. Those subs against Luton lost us the points, and that lineup against Everton was really questionable as well. Now, of course, we had players out through injury and through illness, but why change something that's not broken? Because we didn't play badly against Brighton, they were just the better team. But no, we made 4 changes, which was really bizarre. Personally, I would have taken the line that we had towards the end of that Brighton game, you know, Gibbs-White down the centre, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi on either wing, and I would have started that lineup personally. But for some reason, we decided not to, and played the worst football I've seen us play in the Premier League. Well, even since Steve Cooper came in, to be honest. And those are just the recent examples that I can think off the top of my head. There are obviously many, many more. Now, replacing a manager is a very delicate task, and I'm not 100% certain that getting rid of Steve Cooper is the answer. As I mentioned, I love the man, and I'd love nothing more for it to work out for him. But at some point, you've got to ask questions about where are the points coming from, where are the performances coming from, because we've not looked good. Granted, we're doing better than we were last season at this point. I mean, we were bottom last season, and we're, 15th now? But still, we should have got more points than the amount we do. We should have more than 13 points so far this season. It's a bit embarrassing. Now, this list has been going around Twitter as the odds of our next manager. It's fucking dreadful. Now, Lopetegui is a name that I'm seeing get thrown around quite a lot, but personally, I'd rather lobotomise myself than see him become the manager of my team, because his time at Wolves wasn't great, and yes, he won a European trophy, but did he show any of that at Wolves? No. Will he show that with Forest? I highly doubt it. My ideal replacement, if it was needed, would probably be Graham Potter. He recently turned down the Sweden job for another club job, so I think it's an achievable appointment, to be honest, and it sets a statement as well, in my opinion. He did a very good job at Brighton, and while he was done dirty by Chelsea, he is still a very good manager. I mean, he built on Brighton, he built them up to be, you know, a mainstay of the Premier League, and De Zerbi is just built on what Potter had laid, the foundations Potter had laid. And I think he'd be a very good fit for Forest. You know, we've got a team of young players with some experience thrown in there, and I think we could adapt well to his style of football. Now, obviously, he's made some questionable choices when he was at Brighton and definitely at Chelsea, but I think Forest would be a good clean slate for him. He can really show what he can do. He's got an owner who will back him. Marinakis loves to spend money, so that's like a manager's wet dream almost. We could get the players in that Potter wants if, for some reason, any of the players we don't have already are not really gelling with his style. But I just think a team like Forest will be the perfect team for Potter. I can't lie. So if we had to replace Cooper, Potter would be my ideal choice, I think. Definitely none other names on this list. My god, fucking Steven Gerrard, are you crazy? Fuck it. Nuno Espirito Santo, are you mad? No. If we're getting anyone, it should be Graham Potter in my opinion. I do love Cooper, but I feel that Marinakis' patience is running thin at the moment. And given we play Fulham on Wednesday, I'd be surprised if he lasts to the end of the week if the match at Craven Cottage doesn't go well. And at the moment, Fulham are looking quite dangerous. So they're probably going to bend us over, I'm not going to lie. So I don't know if Steve Cooper lasts another week, to be honest, if the performances don't see a drastic improvement, which is a shame because, as I said, I love the man. And I wish nothing but the best for him because I really want it to work out under Steve Cooper, but some things just aren't clicking at the moment. And eventually, Marinakis is going to have to pull the trigger. And it's going to be a very sad day when that happens. I'm fucking tearing up already, Jesus Christ. But yeah, those are just my thoughts after the Everton game. Something needs to change at this club, and really quick. Now, we're only 14 games in. Look where we were last season. We were bottom of the league and we still survived. So we can do better, and we should be doing better. It's not going to be an easy process to get better in the Premier League. Look at Brighton. It's took them a few seasons to really establish themselves, but now look at them, challenging for Europe, playing in Europe. And I want it to be the same for us. But things have got to change for that to happen, man. It's not going to happen overnight, I know that, but Marinakis wants it to happen sooner than I reckon is possible. Anyway, I've been O2GT. I love Steve Cooper, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.